The laptop is open. That's the first thing. Open on the kitchen table, angled toward the doorway. Screen bright in the middle of a dinner party that is spilled from the dining room into every corner of Greta's house. Tessa is walking back from the bathroom. She's holding a half-empty glass of Riesling. She almost doesn't look. Almost. The file is called T Ongoing. Not Tessa, just T, like a case number. She doesn't touch the keyboard. She doesn't need to. The document is already open, the cursor still blinking at the end of the most recent entry, dated 4 days ago, the Sunday they came for lunch. The one where Tessa brought homemade focaccia and Greta said, "Oh, we already have bread." And that was that. That entry reads, "Brought food unprompted. Miles looked uncomfortable. Rating, 2. Miles is Tessa's husband. She reads it again. Miles looked uncomfortable. Rating, 2. She doesn't look uncomfortable right now. She looks like a woman who has just realized the room she's been standing in for 6 years has a floor made of glass, and she's only now hearing the crack. The document scrolls. She lets it. Her thumb moves on the trackpad before she's made a decision to move it. It goes back, far back. The earliest entry is dated March, 6 years ago, 3 months after Tessa and Miles got engaged. She remembers that March. She remembers thinking Greta was warming up to her. She remembers a Sunday lunch where Greta refilled her water glass without being asked, and Tessa told Miles on the drive home that she thought they'd turned a corner. That entry reads, "Asked about the wedding timeline again. Interrupted Miles twice. Rating, 1. She had asked about the timeline. Once. Because she was excited and didn't know yet that excitement in Greta's house needed to be rationed. Here's what you need to understand about Tessa before we go any further. She is not a person who imagines things. She is a project manager. She works in logistics. She is, professionally, someone who tracks variables, who watches how moving parts interact and adjusts accordingly. She is good at it. She has always been good at it. And for 6 years, she has applied that same precision to her relationship with Greta, calibrating every visit, every gift, every comment, every silence. Pulling back when she sensed she'd pushed too far, softening her opinions, letting things go, chalking up the cold shoulders and the pointed comments and the way Greta looked at Miles whenever Tessa spoke, chalking all of it up to personality differences, generational gaps, the ordinary friction of 2 women who didn't choose each other but loved the same man. She thought she was being generous. She was being managed. The spreadsheet has columns. She takes this in slowly, the way you take in something that you know is going to change things. Not because it introduced new information, but because it organized the information you already had and forced you to look at it all at once. Column 1, date. Column 2, event. Column 3, Tessa's behavior, described in Greta's flat, precise shorthand. Column 4, Miles's reaction, rated 1 through 5. Column 5, which Tessa almost misses because her eyes keep sliding back to column 4, outcome. The outcomes are things like, Miles called that evening, positive, or Miles defended her, negative, or, most often, a single word, neutral, which Tessa now understands to mean that Miles said nothing at all. 6 years of dinners, 6 years of Christmases and birthdays and ordinary Sunday lunches, 6 years of Tessa reading the room and adjusting and trying and wondering what she was doing wrong. It's all here, every visit rated, every conversation indexed, every moment where Tessa showed up and thought she was just having a meal with her husband's mother, cataloged, annotated, scored. From the dining room, she can hear Greta laughing at something Miles said. Warm, easy, familiar. The laugh of a woman who is completely comfortable. Tessa closes the laptop. She picks up her wine glass. She walks back into the dining room, and she smiles. Because here's the thing about finding out you've been studied. You get to decide what you do with that. She sits back down at the dinner table and someone passes her the bread basket and she takes a roll and tears it, and nobody in this room knows. That's the part she keeps returning to, even as the conversation moves around her. A story about Miles's cousin's new car, something about a delayed flight, Greta refilling everyone's glasses with the careful attention of a woman who is always watching. Nobody knows. Tessa knows. Let's go back, because the spreadsheet goes back. And if you want to understand what Tessa is sitting with right now, you need to understand how 6 years of Sunday lunches actually felt from the inside. She met Miles at a work conference in the autumn, the kind of event where everyone is performing a slightly more polished version of themselves. He was warm in a way that felt unperformed, the kind of warm that takes a few years to trust, because you keep waiting for the version underneath it to show up. It never did. He was exactly what he appeared to be: steady, funny in a quiet way, constitutionally incapable of cruelty. She fell for him fast. She doesn't regret that. He told her about Greta early. His father had left when Miles was 11, and it had been the two of them since. Greta working double shifts, Greta showing up to every school play. Greta, who drove 4 hours in February when Miles had his appendix out at 23 and sat in the hospital chair for 2 days without complaint. He loved her the way people love someone who carried them, completely, without audit. Tessa understood that. She respected it. She walked into that first dinner with genuine warmth and open hands. Greta shook her hand. Not a hug, a handshake. Firm, brief, businesslike. Miles didn't notice. Tessa noticed. She filed it under first meeting nerves and moved on. That is what reasonable people do. The second visit went better, on the surface. Greta asked about her work, seemed interested, smiled at the right moments. But there was something underneath the questions, a quality of assessment, not curiosity, like Tessa was being interviewed for a position that hadn't been advertised. She told herself she was being oversensitive. Here's what the spreadsheet says about that second visit. Talked extensively about her own career. Miles deferred twice when challenged. Rating: 2. Outcome: neutral. She talked about her career because Greta asked. She talked about it for maybe 4 minutes. Miles deferred. That's the word Greta used. Deferred. When she asked him what he thought about her promotion, because Miles, being Miles, said something warm and supportive and entirely without ego. That was a 2. Tessa is connecting things in real time right now, sitting at this table, tearing her role into smaller and smaller pieces. She's been a 2 for 6 years, and she didn't know. Because if you've ever sat at a table and felt the specific discomfort of a room that was only partially yours, you already know exactly what this is. And you're going to want to be here when we get to the part that Tessa hasn't found yet. Subscribe if you haven't. I'll be right here. Back to the spreadsheet. The pattern is consistent enough that it stops being a pattern and starts being a policy. Any moment where Tessa takes up space, offers an opinion, makes a plan, expresses a preference, lands as a 2 or below. Any moment where she shrinks, defers, or disappears into the background of Miles's life, 3, sometimes 4. The 5s are rare. She counts 3 of them across 6 years. The first 5, the Christmas where Tessa offered to host, and then, upon Greta's silence, immediately said, "Or we could come to you. Whatever's easier." The second 5, a birthday dinner where Tessa arrived with a headache, spoke very little, and left early. The third 5, the Sunday, 8 months ago, where Tessa and Miles had argued on the drive over, and she sat through the entire lunch saying almost nothing. The quieter she was, the higher the score. She wasn't earning approval by being wonderful. She was earning it by being small. And Miles, steady, warm, constitutionally incapable of cruelty, Miles. His ratings are the column that will keep Tessa awake later, in the dark, long after the dinner is over and the dishes are done, and Greta has kissed them both goodbye at the door. Because Miles's responses aren't tracked as right or wrong, they're tracked as useful or not useful. And across 6 years of Sunday lunches, of Christmases and birthdays and ordinary evenings, Tessa's husband has been useful, reliably, consistently useful, more often than he's been anything else. She looks at him across the table. He catches her eye and smiles. She smiles back. She is very good at smiling back. The drive home is 22 minutes. Tessa counts them. Miles talks the whole way. About his cousin's car, about a work thing, about whether they should repaint the hallway this summer because he thinks the color has gotten tired. He is relaxed in the way people are relaxed after an evening that went well. He reaches over at a red light and puts his hand on her knee. She puts her hand over his. 22 minutes. She says almost nothing. She is thinking about column 4. Here's what she knows about Miles, and has always known. He is not a man who would knowingly participate in something like this. She is certain of that. She holds it the way you hold the one thing you're sure of when everything else has gone soft and unreliable. He is not in on it. He is not complicit in the way that requires awareness, but complicit in the way that doesn't. That's a different question. That's the question that lives in column 4, and she hasn't finished sitting with it yet. She waits until he's in the shower. Then she opens her laptop. She hasn't taken a single photo of the spreadsheet. She didn't think to in the moment. She was too busy just absorbing it. So she is doing this from memory, which turns out to be sharper than she expected. Project managers remember things. It's the job. She starts writing down what she can recall. Dates, entries, ratings, the specific language Greta used. And the more she writes, the more she remembers. There's an entry from the second year, a weekend trip they all took together, a cottage, Miles's idea, something Tessa had quietly dreaded and then felt guilty for dreading. She remembers that weekend with a specific texture, the way Greta would direct questions to Miles even when they were clearly for Tessa, the way every meal felt like a seating arrangement that had been decided without her, the way she'd gone to bed early on the second night and Miles had stayed up with his mother for another 2 hours and come to bed smelling like her perfume because he'd hugged her goodnight in the hallway. The entry from that weekend is one of the longest in the document. Tessa doesn't remember it word for word, but she remembers the rating. 4. The highest score Miles received across all 3 days was a 4, on the morning Tessa slept in and he made his mother coffee alone. She stares at that in her notes. She slept in. He made coffee. 4. The math isn't complicated. Every point on that scale was measuring the same thing. How much of Miles did Greta have access to, unmediated, in any given moment? Tessa wasn't being rated as a daughter-in-law. She was being rated as interference. This is the part where she could spiral. She knows that about herself. She has the kind of mind that, once it finds a thread, will pull until there's nothing left but thread. But she doesn't spiral. She makes a second list, not of entries, of decisions. Her decisions, over 6 years, that she now understands differently. The holiday she suggested they spend abroad, just her and Miles, their first married Christmas, and how Greta had said nothing when they told her, just nodded, and how Miles had come home 3 days later and said, maybe they should think about it again. His mom seemed a bit off. They stayed. Tessa had let it go and told herself it was one Christmas. The job offer she'd gotten 18 months ago, a role in another city, better money, the kind of title she'd been working toward for a decade. She'd turned it down for reasons she'd called practical, proximity to family, Miles's roots here, the house they'd just bought. She writes the word proximity, and then she sits with what she's actually written. She turned down the job. She needs to think about how much of that decision was hers. Tell me something, and I mean this as a genuine question, not a rhetorical one. If someone had been quietly, methodically tracking your behavior for 6 years, rating how much space you took up, what do you think that would have done to the space you allowed yourself? Drop it in the comments. I want to know what you think. Because Tessa is sitting here, the night of the dinner, her husband asleep in the next room, and she is assembling a picture of herself. Not the person she thinks she is, but the person she has slowly, incrementally become inside this dynamic. And those two people are not the same. She made herself smaller. She thought she was being adaptable. She thought she was keeping the peace. But you can't keep a peace that was never offered to you. And Greta, across town right now, perfectly comfortable, probably asleep, has known that from the beginning. The spreadsheet didn't start 3 months after the engagement by accident. It started because Greta saw Tessa coming and made a decision. The question Tessa hasn't asked yet, the one that will change everything, is what decision she's going to make now. She sleeps 4 hours. Not because she can't sleep. She can, usually. The reliable unconsciousness of someone who has always been good at compartmentalizing. She sleeps 4 hours because she wakes at 3 in the morning with a specific thought, fully formed, like it had been waiting for her. The column she almost missed. Outcome. She'd read some of the outcomes during those 2 minutes at the laptop. Miles called that evening. Positive. Miles defended her. Negative. Neutral. But she'd been so fixed on column 4, on Miles's ratings, on the 1 through 5 of her own marriage, that she hadn't read far enough into the outcome column to understand what it was actually tracking. She gets up. She goes to the kitchen. She opens her notes. She has maybe 40% of the spreadsheet from memory, enough to work with. She reads back through the outcomes she managed to record, and this time she's reading them differently. Not as observations, but as results. Not what happened, but what Greta did about what happened. Miles called that evening. Miles came over the following Sunday alone. Miles brought flowers unprompted on Thursday. Miles suggested they take a break from the every week dinners, said Tessa needed space. Outcome noted as positive, contained. Contained. Tessa reads that word 4 times. She pulls up her calendar, the shared one she and Miles use, and starts going back. 18 months, 2 years, 3. Looking for the Thursdays, looking for the solo visits, looking for the weeks where Miles suggested they skip Sunday, and she'd felt a quiet, private relief she'd never examined too closely. There are a lot of Thursdays. She had known about some of them, vaguely. Miles mentioning he'd popped in to check on his mom, or dropped something off, or had lunch nearby and swung by. She had never questioned it. He is a devoted son. She has always known that. She has always, on some level, admired it. She is looking at it differently now. Because devoted sons don't get summoned. She counts 11 solo visits in the 18 months she can clearly map. 11 times Miles went to Greta's without her, each one following a low-rated dinner within the week. Not every low-rated dinner produced a visit, but every solo visit followed a low-rated dinner. It's not proof of anything she can name cleanly. He might have genuinely just wanted to see his mother. That is possible. She holds that possibility carefully, the way you hold something fragile when you're not sure if it's worth saving. But here's the one she can't explain away. The job offer. 18 months ago, the role in another city, the one she turned down. She remembers the timeline now with a clarity that the intervening months had softened but not erased. She'd told Miles about the offer on a Monday. They'd talked about it, genuinely talked, she thought, openly, with real consideration on both sides. Miles had seemed supportive, curious. He'd said, "Let's think about it properly. Don't decide yet." That Thursday, he went to Greta's for lunch. By the following Monday, he'd started raising the practical concerns. The house, his roots, proximity to family. All sensible, all reasonable, all things she'd ultimately agreed with. She types the word, Thursday. She stares at it. She wants to be wrong about this. She wants to be the person who is reading too much into a calendar, who has taken a spreadsheet and turned it into a conspiracy because her nervous system needs a shape for the thing it's been living in. But she is a project manager. She tracks variables. And the variable she is tracking right now? Thursday lunches, low-rated dinners, real-world outcomes, has a correlation she cannot in good conscience dismiss. She closes the calendar. Here's what she decides at 3:47 in the morning, standing in her kitchen in her husband's house in the city she didn't leave. She is going back to Greta's, not for a confrontation. Not yet. She needs to read the rest of that spreadsheet, the parts she didn't see, the entries she couldn't hold in memory, the columns she almost missed. She needs the full picture before she decides what to do with it, because she is not the kind of woman who moves on incomplete information, and she has been doing exactly that for 6 years. She knows how to get back in. Greta leaves a spare key under the ceramic pot by the back door. She's known about it since the second year, when Miles showed her in case of emergency. She has always thought of emergencies as accidents. She is reclassifying. The occasion she's been waiting for arrives 10 days later, offered by Greta herself. A routine grocery run. A text to Miles asking if he could pick up a few things. Miles stuck in a meeting. Tessa, 3 minutes from the house. She offers to drop them off. Greta says yes. Of course she does. In 6 years, Tessa has never once been inside that house alone. She is counting on Greta not having considered what a woman who has finally stopped being manageable might do with 20 unsupervised minutes. And a spare key. And absolutely nothing left to lose. The key is exactly where it always was. Tessa lets herself in through the back, sets the groceries on the counter, and doesn't hesitate. Hesitation is for people who aren't sure what they're doing. She is completely sure. The laptop is on the kitchen table again. Different angle, same table. She will think about that later. What it means that Greta leaves it there, open, accessible, in the room where people come to make tea and set down shopping bags and move through without looking. How long has it been there? How many people have walked past it without noticing? She sits down. She opens the file. She starts from the beginning this time. She reads for 11 minutes. She knows because she sets a timer. She needs to be gone before Greta gets back, and she needs her hands to stop shaking before she drives, and she is allocating her time with the precision of someone who has been underestimated for 6 years and is finished being surprised by it. The early entries confirm what she already reconstructed from memory. But there are details she missed, things her brain hadn't held on to. Small observations that, in isolation, sound like nothing, and in sequence, sound like a woman who has been conducting an extremely patient, extremely deliberate campaign. An entry from year 3. Suggested to M that T's friendship with her colleague Patrick seemed disproportionately close. M did not react. Filed. She reads that 3 times. Patrick, her colleague, her friend of 8 years, the one who moved to Edinburgh 2 years ago, the one whose leaving she'd been genuinely sad about, the one Miles had always been faintly, inexplicably cool toward without ever being able to say why. Filed. She scrolls forward. Year 4. An entry she doesn't have context for, a dinner she can't specifically place. T mentioned wanting to start a business eventually. Entrepreneurial instability, flagged for later use. Flagged for later use. She sits with that phrase for a moment. It has the quality of something written by a person who thinks in the long term, not reactively, strategically. Greta wasn't responding to Tessa. She was building a case file, entry by entry, year by year, and she was building it for an audience of one. The son who trusted her completely and had no reason to question the gentle, offhand way his mother occasionally raised a small concern. Not an attack, never an attack, just a word, placed carefully, at the right moment. Just a question, just a lunch on a Thursday. Tessa is almost at the end of the document now. The entries get more recent. She recognizes them, can place them in her own memory, can map them onto the last 12 months of her life with a precision that feels like being shown an X-ray of something you thought was fine. And then she reaches the final section. It isn't entries. It's a different tab. She almost misses it. A second sheet in the same document labeled with a single letter. M. She opens it. It is not a log of the past. It is a list. 12 items, numbered, written in the same flat shorthand as everything else. Some of them she understands immediately. Others take a moment. But by the time she reaches item 7, her hands have gone completely still. Item 7 reads, Property. T's name on deed is a complication. Discuss inheritance framing with M before his birthday. Revisit spring. His birthday was in March. It is April. She closes the tab. She closes the laptop. She picks up her bag, checks that everything looks exactly as she found it, and walks to the back door. This is the moment where some people would leave, where the weight of what they've just read would make them want to go home and sit in a quiet room and decide nothing for a very long time. Tessa is not some people. She stands at the back door with her hand on the frame, and she makes a decision. Not out of anger. Anger would be simpler, cleaner, easier to act on rashly. This is something steadier. Something that has been building for 6 years without her knowing it had a name. She is a project manager. She tracks variables. She watches how moving parts interact and adjusts accordingly. Greta has been running this operation for 6 years, under the assumption that Tessa was a variable to be managed. She was wrong about that. Tessa isn't a variable. She's been the project manager all along. She just didn't know yet what project she was managing. She knows now. She pulls the door shut behind her. She hears the lock click. She gets in the car. She calls Miles. Can you come home early tonight? There's something I want to talk about. He says, of course. He says, is everything okay? He says she sounds different. She says she's fine. She says she'll explain when he gets home. She is not fine. She is decided. And Greta, currently somewhere in a supermarket, unhurried, confident in a system that has worked for 6 years, has no idea that the variable just read the whole spreadsheet. Miles gets home at 6:15. She hears the key in the lock, and she's already at the kitchen table, her laptop open, her notes beside it, the ones she made from memory the night after the dinner, the ones she's been adding to since. She has spent the last 3 hours organizing them the way she organizes everything. Clearly, chronologically, without editorializing. She is going to need to be very calm for this. She is very calm. He comes in, sets his bag down, looks at her face, and stops. What's wrong? Sit down, she says. I need to show you something. She doesn't accuse him. That's the first thing she decided, sitting in the car outside Greta's house. Accusation closes doors, and she needs this door to stay open long enough for him to actually walk through it. So she starts from the beginning. The laptop on the table, the file called T, what she read in those 2 minutes, and what she went back to confirm. She shows him her notes. She reads him specific entries, verbatim, the ones she's certain about. She watches his face. Miles is a man who doesn't hide things well. She has always loved that about him. She watches him move through the stages in real time. Confusion first, then a dawning discomfort that he tries to push back on. Then the moment he can't push back on it anymore. It happens somewhere around the entry from year 3, the one about Patrick. He says, "She mentioned that to me, about Patrick." Tessa says, "I know." He says, I didn't think anything of it. It was just something she said." Tessa says, "I know." She is not angry at him. She wants to be clear about that, because it would be easier if she were. Anger is a clean, navigable emotion. What she feels is something more like grief and something more like relief, simultaneously, which is a combination she doesn't have a word for and suspects she'll be finding words for a long time yet. She shows him the second tab, the list, item 7, the property entry. She watches him read it twice. She watches him put the laptop down on the table and press both hands flat against the surface, the way he does when he's trying to stay very still inside something that is moving fast. He says, "I didn't know about this." She says, "I know you didn't." He says, "Tessa." She says, "I know." Here's what she doesn't say, because she doesn't need to say it, because Miles is not a foolish man, and he is sitting right here at this table, and he is reading the same thing she is. What she doesn't say is, "But you were part of it anyway. You didn't know, and you were part of it anyway. Every Thursday, every gentle, well-placed word your mother said to you, and that you carried home without knowing you were carrying it." She doesn't say it because she doesn't need to. She can see him understanding it on his own. That's the only way it means anything, if he gets there himself. They talk for a long time. Through dinner, which neither of them eats. Into the evening, the room getting dark around them until Miles gets up and turns on the lamp because they've both forgotten about light. She doesn't tell him what to do about Greta. She's decided that firmly. That is not her decision to make, and making it for him would be a version of the same thing, using her proximity to Miles to shape a conclusion she's already reached. She is not Greta. She is not interested in running that kind of operation. What she tells him is this: she is not willing to keep calibrating herself to a system that was designed to make her smaller. She is not willing to lose another job offer, another friendship, another ordinary human decision to a spreadsheet she wasn't supposed to know existed. She is not angry, she is not leaving, but she is done performing inside a dynamic that only works if she doesn't understand it. She is not a variable, and she needs him to decide. Not tonight, she's giving him time. What he's going to do with that. Miles looks at her across the table. Really looks. The way people look when they're seeing something they realize they should have seen sooner. He says, "I'm sorry." She says, "I know." She means it. She was what I want to leave you with. Greta kept a spreadsheet because she understood something that Tessa hadn't fully articulated yet. That influence is most effective when the person being influenced doesn't know they're being influenced. The moment Tessa found that file, the whole system stopped working. Not because Greta changed, but because Tessa did. You cannot be managed by someone once you understand the method. That's not a small thing. That's everything. Some of you are sitting with something right now, a dynamic you've been navigating by instinct, a pattern you felt but couldn't name, a relationship where you've been adjusting and never quite understanding why the room still doesn't feel like yours. This is your permission to trust what you've been feeling. You don't need the spreadsheet in front of you. You already knew. If this one stayed with you, I have another story that lives right next to this one. About a woman who found out her family had been making decisions about her life for years in group chats she wasn't in. It's called "She Was Added to the Chat After the Vote." It's already up. I'll see you there. I'm Hani. People always show you who they are. Wettedy just slows it down. I'll see you in the next one.